Hi everybody, I'm Alexa Surs and I am a Doctor of Chiropractic student. Today we'll be talking about the 12 cranial nerves and what they do and different ways that you can exercise them. So let's get started. Alright, so for cranial nerve number 1, it is also known as your olfactory nerve and it is responsible for your special sense of smell. And it originates all the way from your nasal mucosa where it travels through your cribriform plate of your ethmoid bone and it synapses into your olfactory bulbs and then terminates into the cortex. So this is one of my favorite cranial nerve exercises, and what you could do is you could just take a scent. Right here I have rose, but you could do any kind of scent or anything that you have in your kitchen that's strong and recognizable. But what you do is you take the scent, cover one nostril, breathe it in, plug it, and exhale the scent, and then you do the same thing on this side. And you can keep doing this, and I recommend that you do it for about 5 to 8 repetitions. And if you only have one side that's affected, you could keep doing it on the same side, or if you have a problem with both sides, then you could do treatment on both. But it's just a fun and enjoyable way. And if you get really good at it, something that you could do to challenge it is you could do it, balance on one leg, breathe it in, and yeah. And that's for cranial nerve number 1. So now that we're done exercising cranial nerve number 1, where you got to see me do this super attractive, deep, heavy breathing right into the microphone of the camera, let's move on to cranial nerve number 2. Cranial nerve number 2 is also known as the optic nerve. It's responsible for your sense of sight, and this one travels all the way from your retina through the optic canal, and then they converge and cross over at the optic chiasma, and then they synapse over at the thalamus and go all the way back to the back of your brain at the occipital lobe to the visual cortex. And in order to exercise this nerve, we will be talking about it a little bit later in the video, where we will exercise it at the same time as cranial nerves number 3, 4, and 6. And now moving on to cranial nerve number 3. This is known as the oculomotor nerve. It goes from the ventral midbrain through the superior orbital fissure and into the muscles of your eye, and it goes to the medial rectus, the inferior rectus, the superior rectus, and the inferior oblique. It also goes to your ciliary muscles, your sphincter pupillae muscles, and to your levator palpebrae superioris. So what this means is that it's responsible for all your eye movements except for looking directly out and to the side, and except for looking out to the side and down. And in order to strengthen this nerve, we're going to be doing it as a group with nerves 2, 4, and 6. And now for cranial nerve number 4, this is known as the trochlear nerve. And just like cranial nerve number 3, it arises from the ventral midbrain, goes through superior orbital fissure, and goes to the superior oblique muscle. This muscle is responsible for looking down and out, kind of like you're giving somebody side eye, or like you're trying to send somebody like a message real quick, like. And just with the previous nerves, we'll be training it with cranial nerves number 2, 3, and 6. And now for cranial nerve number 5, this is known as the trigeminal nerve. It's responsible for sensation in your face and also provides motor to the muscles of mastication that help you chew and eat. And it's split into 3 divisions. The first one is the ophthalmic division, and it covers about this portion of your face. And then there's the maxillary division that covers about here. And then there's the mandibular portion. The mandibular portion is the only one that provides both sensory and motor. And the first 2 divisions are only responsible for sensory. So now let's learn how to exercise. And now something you could do to help exercise cranial nerve number 5, you could take something like gum or chewy candy. I already have gum in my mouth. But while you chew on it, just massage your muscles of mastication. You can switch sides while you chew too, if you need to exercise both sides. And then there's another technique you could do where it's moving chi energy, and you follow along the Sanhino meridian, where you go from the eyebrow and you massage from around the ear and down the neck. You can do this while you chew. The idea behind it is to move the energy that's causing the nerve to stagnate, and you're just moving the energy down and out in order to get the nerve stimulated and functioning properly again. For cranial nerve number 6, this is known as the abducens nerve. And this nerve runs from the inferior pons, goes through the superior orbital fissure, and goes to the lateral rectus muscle of the eye. This is the muscle that's responsible for looking directly out and to the side. And now to exercise cranial nerves 2, 3, 4, and 6, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking up rock string. And what we're going to be doing, you could make it at home with just a string and a couple beads, and I have my helper out here, Canella. But what you're going to be doing is you're just going to be taking the string, put it up to your nose, and when you look at the first bead directly in front of you, what you should see is a V. You should see a V going straight out from your nose and just forming this. And then when you look at the second bead, what you should see, which is the green one right here. When you focus in on that one, you should see the string forming an X pattern. And then what you do after that is you look at the third farthest bead, which is the pink bead. And when you look at it, it should be forming an inverted V. And if you want to make this test, or not this test, if you want to make this exercise a little bit more challenging, what you could do, you have a balance board here, but what you could do to make it a little bit harder, just step right on it. Make sure I don't fall while I do this. Balance on the board, pull it up to your nose, and then do this exercise, which makes it a lot more difficult for me. As you can see, I'm shaking a little bit. I haven't had a lot of practice, so obviously I need to do this more. But yeah, it's very simple. And if you don't want to do the Brock string activity, what we could do as an alternative is you could just put on a video and just track the movement of a snake with your eyes. And in order to challenge yourself or make it more difficult, or if you only have one side that needs to be treated, what you do is you just cover one eye and then follow it along. And super simple and super easy to do. And now for cranial nerve number 7, this is also known as the facial nerve. It provides sensation to your external acoustic meatus of your ear, and it is also for taste of your anterior 2/3 of your tongue. That's for sweet taste. And it's also motor to your facial expression muscles, and also for saliva and tear production. And this one, with the fibers it leaves from the pons, goes through the internal acoustic meatus, travels through the stylomastoid foramen, and then splits into 5 divisions. In order to help train and exercise cranial nerve number 7, what you could do is just make various facial expressions. You could smile, frown, you could raise your eyebrows, you could puff out your cheeks, you can flare your nostrils. And what you could do to make this more challenging is to try to only activate one side. So, see, it's already struggling. I can't raise one eyebrow, but if you can. And just do step number 8. This is known as the vestibular cochlear nerve, and it's responsible for your sense of hearing and balance. And it travels from your hearing receptors and your equilibrium receptors through the internal acoustic meatus and to the pons. And to help train and exercise cranial nerve number 8, what you want to do is just challenge your sense of balance. I have a balancing board, but you could do these exercises without it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place it on the floor. I'm going to be right behind my counter so I have something to catch me. Okay, and just balance. Obviously, I need to exercise this nerve a little bit more. Balance, and then once you feel good, you close your eyes to challenge it a little bit. See how wobbly I got? And then once you get really good, what you could do, you could change positions to go on one leg, and then switch legs. And then what you can also do to help challenge and to get the hearing aspect of the nerve involved is at the same time you could play a TV show, and then without looking you could try and guess who's talking. Or you could do the same thing with music and try to guess who's singing. Which is the glossopharyngeal nerve. This one runs from the medulla, exits the skull via the jugular foramen, and then it goes on to provide sensory innervation to the carotid body and sinus, and to the posterior 1/3 of the tongue for bitter taste. And it also provides motor to the muscles of the throat that assist in swallowing and for the gag reflex. In order to exercise or train cranial nerve number 9, what you could do is something called frog breathing. And it's basically where you take a deep breath in and then you try to gulp or swallow the air, but you're not breathing it in. So what you do is you just kind of like that, kind of like a frog would do. And you know, it's something that I recommend that you film and send to your significant other so they could see how beautiful you are. Just really great. And if you're having trouble doing that, what you could do is just plug your nose and then try again. Number 10, which is the vagus nerve, and it runs from the medulla, goes through the jugular foramen, and then it goes on to provide sensory to the internal organs and also to the throat, and also assists in taste. And it also provides motor to the muscles of the throat, where it assists in swallowing, speech production, and also the gag reflex. Exercise cranial nerve number 10. This is probably my favorite one to do. I do it in the shower and in my car all the time. But you could either laugh, sing, hum. So I recommend putting on your favorite show, your favorite music, and then just going along with it. And as much as I would love to demonstrate for you guys, when I was doing it, in my head, I sounded like Beyonce. and when I played it back, it kind of sounded like alfalfa. So I need to figure out my audio problem, because I know it's not me. It's definitely got to be my audio, but before I demonstrate and show you guys, I need to get that figured out. And now we have cranial nerve number 11, which is the spinal accessory nerve. It runs from the medulla through the jugular foramen to innervate the trapezius muscle and the sternocleidomastoid muscles. These are the muscles that allow you to move your head and your neck in various positions and allow you to move your shoulders. And just as cranial nerve number 11, what you want to do is you want to take your arm, place it up against the wall, raise it up until you feel resistance. And what you want to do is just hold it for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then release. And then do that for 5 more reps. And finally, we finally made it. We have cranial nerve number 12, which is the hypoglossal nerve. And this is a motor nerve that runs from the medulla through the hypoglossal canal into the tongue. And it assists in motor for the tongue and assists in speech production, swallowing, and also the gag reflex. Exercises cranial nerve. Some things that you could do include just pushing your tongue against the side of your cheek and resisting it. Or you can move your tongue in various positions, or if you really want to get creative and you can do it, try to fold it, flip it, and just do stuff like that. Or if you want to work this nerve in correlation with cranial nerve number 9 and 10 as well, what you could do is just pretend to swallow about 5 to 8 times, or swallow your own spit like I did accidentally, but that'll get them all stimulated.